Today we're going to be talking about purchase requests and contract management, right? So those are the two applications that we're going to be viewing today as a part of the demo. I'm going to try to speak slowly and concisely, but I do get excited about our applications. So if I do go too fast, or if you have questions about a particular detail of any of the applications, Scott Restivo is also on the line. He will be answering questions as we go. So if it's something I went over a little too quickly for you, or you want more information, plug it into the question box there, and Scott's going to be monitoring that. And if it's something that he wants me to address while I'm chatting, he'll slow me down, stop me, and we'll go into it in more detail. So please don't hesitate to ask questions. And I will say that if you are interested in viewing these after our demo today, just let me know. We could set up a time to do a more personalized demo, again, to talk about some of those questions that you have in more detail. Okay, great. So purchasing is where we're going to start today. And really, like where I want to start, or where I start most of my demos, are personalized demos. As you know, a lot of you know, I see a lot of existing customers attending the webinar today, so I thank you guys for coming back. And for those new folks, I like to start on just kind of the architecture, the structure behind what we do here at Crow Canyon. So all of our out-of-the-box applications are the guys you're seeing here on the screen now, right? Help desk, asset tracking, purchasing, contract management, obviously being the two we cover today. Now, these are all templated SharePoint applications that we deploy into your environment, whether it be Office 365 or SharePoint on-premise. They sit inside of your SharePoint space, right? So it's nice because you own the data. It sits inside of SharePoint lists, SharePoint pages, SharePoint dashboards, kind of everything standard to SharePoint. It's just we have these pre-built applications that go inside of your environment. Now, what these tools run on is something that we call Nitro Studio. Nitro Studio is our own proprietary set of tools that we use to build the applications with. So forms, workflows, dashboards, reports, branding, kind of everything that goes into the application is specific to Crow Canyon. And the reason I bring that up is because it's basically a really long-winded way to say, hey, look, if you want to make changes to the out-of-the-box application, we can leverage this Nitro Studio tool set to do so. So just because it comes a certain way out of the box, what I'm going to be covering today, doesn't mean that we can't make changes. And I think that's going to be highlighted in the purchase request more than the contract management. Well, we'll both go hand in hand. I shouldn't specify one over the other, but specifically around purchase requests, right? I haven't been a part of or I haven't seen any two companies have the same approval process for their departments in my 5, 6, 7 years in SharePoint. Wow. So that's why it gives us that Nitro tool set gives us the flexibility to make it make sense for you. So I'm going to show you the out-of-the-box product. Some people, it may be 80% to complete solution for you from day one. Others, it may work exactly as designed, or out of the box is going to be exactly what you want from day one. So most of you are going to fall in the middle, right? So I just want you to keep that in mind as we progress forward, that yes, what I'm showing you today is a part of the out-of-the-box tool, but it can be tweaked, managed, and maintained as we move forward. One thing I'd like to highlight just real quick before I jump into the product is actually we do have a language conversion option too. If you have any French speakers or Spanish speakers, you can always display, using our branding web part, you can always display something in Spanish or another language if you choose to, right? So you can see it translates pretty quickly and effectively there. Go back to English here so I don't get lost. At the top. Okay. All right, let's talk about the application. So purchase request. It's all about submitting a purchase request and working it through the approval process to then create a purchase order. So in a lot of our applications, again, we go back to those kind of SharePoint standards. We're working off of lists, SharePoint lists, right? Purchase request is one, purchase order is one, purchase line items is another. And our goal using our forms tool is to make all that information consumable from one screen, from one form, right? So the reason that we break the information or the purchase requests up into multiple lists is because of a few reasons. It gives us flexibility with what we can do from a information capture perspective, metadata perspective. It also gives us the ability to write off specific workflows based around SharePoint columns, based around certain forms, based around certain people, right? So it gives us an increased flexibility in form design, information capture, as well as the approval process. So now looking at submitting a purchase request form. we get the basic idea, right? This is basically the cover sheet, the generic information that we want to capture associated to this purchase request. You know what it is. Let's say new laptops. That's easy. You know, if you want to put a priority status, you can. Is it budgeted? Type of purchase, right? This will be hardware. The department that it's for, let's say it's sales. And the nice thing here is that living in the back end of the application, we can define a budget for each department, right? So we see, you know, if it's budgeted or not and what department that it's for. I'm going to duplicate this because we're going to talk about the back end here in a second. Purchase agent, we'll say it's Scott since we got him on the horn today, and who it's submitted for. I am going to pull up the admin center here as I talk though. Okay, that's going to come into play here in a second. Now, and then the reason for purchase. So this is a, you know, a multi-line of text column. You can add images, you can add screenshots, you can copy and paste. There's a lot of options on how you want to get your information across, or it's just rich text, right? Help if I could spell though. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. There we go. Now line items. So this is one of these secondary lists that I was talking about in our application. So primary lists in this regard is purchase request. Secondary is going to be purchase line items. We break it up into its own form mainly because of this reason, the purchase categories. So if you have a defined set of items to be purchased from and you want to define that catalog to your end users, when we pull up this purchase item form, it gives you the ability to do so with some lookup columns, right? So, or with some list associations, I think is the best way to say it. So like we look at hardware assets, because I think this is the laptop purchase, right? So we're going to look at the category of hardware asset, and we'll say, oh, we'll desktops, because that's what we have programmed in here. So as you can see, it's going to predefine the purchase price per unit, and then it's just on them to come in and define the quantity, right? You can always plug in vendors if you want, or accounting codes if need be, and hit save, right? So this is giving them the ability to select from that predefined catalog that, hey, I want to buy these 10 Dell desktops. Let's change that because I'm OCD and that'll bother me. Sorry, guys. New desktops. Second item. Now we have the ability to come in here and add multiple line items to this. We're not limited to just one item per purchase request, right? That'd be silly. We want to be able to have a little bit of flexibility here. So again, you can always come back to the catalog, right? And, you know, let's say software assets. Now release 10 laptops, we need 10 sets of Windows licenses, right? Now these essentially become their own independent entities to be tracked, maintained, and reviewed for this purchase request. The piece I want to show you here is maybe a request that isn't being Sorry guys, my headset shut off on me. I'm back though. So the last piece here is the purchase items, right? So if you don't have a predefined purchase catalog, right? So let's say you know, it's something outside of the norm, like a Crow Canyon system, right? It's something that is not you know, new to, or it's something new to your purchase catalog. So let's say Crow Canyon PR tool, right? It gives you the ability now to come in here and define a new purchase item, right? A new purchase item to be added to this purchase request. So we can select from a catalog. We can also define our own, right? If we're building out a new purchase request. Now the cool part here is this submit for approval button. So those familiar with SharePoint know that we can save and create a line item on any new form. Again, if we go back and we talk about this just as a basic SharePoint list, right? It's a new form. We save it, an item gets created. But in this regard, we want to run it through the approval process. We want to run the workflow associated with this purchase request. I like this because it gives me the warm and fuzzies. Silly, I know saying it out loud sounds silly, but the green status arrows to say, hey, Ryan, it fired off correctly. You have the proper permissions. The workflow is generating. Your purchase request has been submitted for approval. I see the green status arrow. I feel a whole heck better because I know that it went off. I don't have to go back and check it. I don't have to ping the finance team or the purchase team, whoever's in charge of this, that if my request went through, right? It also saves you guys a bit of time too on the back end from the technician perspective. Now I said submit for approval, right? Now in the back end, this is where we define that. So in the application admin center, I was pulling it up early, but if you have proper access, let's say that a lot. It's going to come down to role-based permissions. Typically the applications fall into 3 separate roles, right? End users, form submitters, right? Technicians, people working the purchase request, and then the admin center because of people who can make changes to the application. It's the best way to say it. So not only can you change like the list themselves, the purchase request list, I'm going to close this, the line items list, you can also come in and create and define your own departments, your own purchase categories, your own purchase catalog, right? This is where we're reading from when I was pulling up that Dell desktop. This is where we're getting the cost from, the category it's associated with, etc. So you can come in and flesh out your own purchase catalog and category. But the approval levels. This is pretty common across a lot of our applications, this approval levels list, right? We're going to talk a little bit about that in the contract management piece as well in a minute. But the idea being, you have a lot of flexibility with what you can do from an approval perspective. So let's say you want to build out approval levels based on amount or department or person, right? You have the ability to define that in this approval levels form. Again, it's a sub list, right? Approval levels is its own list. So we have our own form associated with it. Goes back to that principle of capturing specific metadata associated with the form. But in this case, the workflows associated with the columns, right? So let's just say level 3, since we already have level 2 and 1 built in here. And we'll make this for hardware. We'll make it for the IT team. We'll make it for 5,000. Actually, let's make this IT approval. That'd be a little better, a little more pointed. So anything that's a hardware purchase for IT over $5,000, you know, we'll say IT approver, and we'll call it level 1, is going to go to me, right? Now, Office 365, SharePoint user profiles, all we have to do is start typing that person's name. They come up as an option as an approver here. Now you can also define a few other pieces here, approval tasks, due hours, etc. So approval date, right? If you want to have this approved by a certain day, if you want to define a certain set of hours that it needs to be approved by, you absolutely can. You can also give them an approval task to be completed internally. But let's just create this. And now we've created an IT approval specifically for hardware purchases. Now, once that purchase request has been submitted for approval, and I will say that the approval levels can get complex. I know we have one company that has offices across the entire country, or no, the entire world. I'm sorry, a bunch of different locations, 20 levels of approval processes. Now, obviously that is custom to them. It takes a little bit of time and effort to get there, but it is absolutely possible. I'm just showing you the very basic kind of setup of approvals. But again, if you want to take it and run with it, you absolutely can. Okay, off topic. Now, once the purchase request is submitted and it runs through the approval process, you're notified as an approver that a new PR is in your name, and you can go out and either and approve it in one of 2 different ways. Like I said, a task can be created. Task is created. And as an approver, I can come in here and I can approve these tasks, right? Come in here and look at the individual tasks, almost like a ticket. And we give you something called custom actions, right? So these custom actions, in my opinion, are manually invoked workflows, I think is the best way to describe it. Where like our automated workflows, that submit for approval button that we have here on the front form is more automated, right? You hit the button and it fires off, or an email is sent in, you create a workflow that way. Notification goes off based on a date column, right? Kind of set and forget. These are at a date and time of our choosing. So let's say if I hit approve, it's going to run that workflow automatically for me. Again, make sure that I have proper permissions. It's going to ask me for comments, laptops approved for new hires. Okay, and if there's a multi-step approval process here, it's going to go to the next person in line, right? So if I approve it and someone needs to say Scott has to approve it after me, once I approve it, it's going to pass it along to Scott and say, hey, Scott, you're next in line to approve these laptops. A few other options that they have here as an approver, you can absolutely deny it, and you can also send it back here as well. And all of these are going to prompt a certain set of comments associated with it. to communicate that either to the end user or to the next approver based on how you responded to the original purchase request. Need to refine the price. Okay, whatever it may be, right? So it does give them some options. Now, this is coming in here and physically signing off on the task when it's assigned to you. Okay, another option is, I'm going to pull up an email here. If I can open my app launcher. Come on, load for me, big guy. So as this is going off, I'm going to close some tabs on my side. I got 50 things open, classic me, have to have a bunch of things running. Now my email. So another option is something called quote unquote lazy approvals. I think it's just a term that's been coined in the market. But instead of coming in, now this is something that is above and beyond, but it is something that is easily obtainable, right? Oh, wait, approve, deny, send back. Okay. Another option, as opposed to coming into the task and physically hitting one of those buttons, right? This is another option here. You get an email sent to you, and you get the information associated with the purchase request here on the email. The options that we have on the approval tasks, right? Approve, deny, send back, our custom actions here at the top. Approve, deny, send back, right? Same options here. We get the information in the purchase request, who's submitting it, what the purchase, who the purchase agent is, the quantity, etc. And now all you have to do as an approver is select options. You're going to read the title of the email to update that column, that choice column, the approve, deny, send back column on the approvals list to update that approval process. Approve, let's say. So if you have folks that don't want to come in and actually physically sign off on these tasks and they want to do it via email, absolutely a possibility. Both are options. Okay. I'm going to come back to my dashboard here for purchase requests. Now, once it goes through the approval process and it's ready to be created or turned into a purchase order, there's two different options for creating the purchase order. Honestly, I see it about 50-50 on how people want to handle it. It's either once it runs through the approval process, it automatically creates the purchase order, right? Level 1 approved, level 2 approved, level 3 approved, create the purchase order, okay? Another option is as a finance member, team member, I can come in here and see that this has all been approved, right? This purchase request. They've all the approvals have been worked through. And wrong one, hold on, sorry guys, wrong view. Open this up so we can show you. Oh, I just sent this back. Yeah, I just sent this back. Sorry, I sent that one back when we were doing the approval task, so that's not going to work for me. It's okay though, we get the idea. Which would just open this guy up. But once we go through the purchase request process, we have the ability as a technician, right, that second level, to come in here and actually physically view the purchase request before we create a purchase order, right? So you have one more time to put eyes on it, to check on it and say, okay, hey, look, let me look at the approval levels, what was said, has anything changed in the price for these particular purchased items? What's going on before I create a purchase order. So it just gives you that one kind of like extra level to catch something before it gets turned into a purchase order, right? So it does give you that ability, and then you can always see what's been created and what's turned into a purchase order at any time. So the two options are it automatically creates the purchase order. The second being that the purchasing team, the finance team, whoever's in charge of the application does get a chance to view it before it becomes a purchase order. Now, once we create a purchase order, we want to track it, right? We want to track the assets associated with the purchase request, whether they be hardware assets, marketing assets, software assets, whatever they may be. We want to track them from the purchase orders list. So just real quick here before I jump into this, while I talk about it, on our dashboards, you've been seeing some of these reports. Right, we have these tiles and dials web parts at the top. We have these reports built in across these dashboards as well. This is again Nitro Studio. The forms, the workflows, the custom actions, those are Nitro as well. Those get a lot of the love. Whenever we build a SharePoint application, more often than not we talk about forms and workflows, right? show me the form, run the workflow behind it, the business process. But then there's this other piece, the aesthetically pleasing, right? Again, this is all centric to Nitro Studio. And the cool thing about the reports, the easiest way to say it is as long as the information lives within the application, we can report on it. So in this case, we're looking at a particular list. You can also roll up multiple lists for reports, but it's basically looking at a list or a set of lists and then certain columns within that list. So purchase orders by department, right? Purchase orders by month, purchase orders by status. Now these reports can be exported out to PDF, they can be emailed, they can also be sent to a person at a date and time cadence of your choosing. Hey, every Monday morning at 9 a.m., I want to see the open purchase orders by department. I want to see the amount, the remaining budget for each department at the beginning of every month, right? So those can be sent via email, again, or you can build them into these dashboards here. So it is kind of cool. You have some flexibility with the reporting tool. Well, let's talk about our purchase items now. Let's track these guys. So cool. We have multiple here. That's cool. That's what I was hoping for. Okay, so the purchase order is its own entity. Going back, I know a broken record, but we have two lists, right, that we're looking at here. We have the purchase order list, the request to renew an order, and the line items list, the purchase catalog that we defined. The reason that we do that, one of the reasons, again, going past the metadata, workflows, etc., is being able to track them independently of each other. So it's kind of cool because not everything gets shipped at once, right? We're all coming up on Christmas. We know that. Things get there at different times, hopefully all on time, right? But we still got a few weeks for that. But let's say the LaserJet printers are going to get here at a different time than the keyboards, right? And you don't want to lump this purchase order in as just one generic tracking status, right? So opening up this individual item, again, we look at that form where we added in the original items, the purchase request, and we can track this through, again, a custom action, updating this received quantity. So now I can come in here and say, I got 4 out of the 5 HP LaserJet printers. As it kind of see some of the thought process here in our workflow tool, which is kind of cool. It gives you a peek under the covers, again, that warm and fuzzy that I was talking about. But does it want to fulfill the PO? No, we haven't filled out all of our line items. So what is it going to do? It's going to partially fulfill that PO. I come back into the item. I should see 4 out of 5, right? I come back in the purchase request. I might need a refresh here since I reopened and closed it. And we should see a status change, partially fulfilled, and a status changed, partially received, right? The cool thing about this, I think it's cool, is that now I can come in here and be like, oh, hey guys, I got all 5, because we've already logged that I have 4, right? So if I come in here and I say, oh, I got all 5, hey, Ryan, can't do that. You see that you have 4 here. So just kind of, I don't know if eliminating the human error is the right word. Probably in my case it is, but it just gives you the ability to have a fail-safe here. Maybe you're tracking them, you're storing this information in an ERP system, and you've already tracked 4 as being received or whatever it may be, and it's going to throw that off. It just gives you the ability to build in that fail-safe to say, okay, look, we got 4 out of 5. Don't go in and mark 5. Just go in and mark the 1 as received, right? It just gives you that ability to kind of define different parameters on when you receive items. Now, one thing that I will talk about as I'm gonna update all of these line items here because I want to move this through the status. So as you watch me update these received items, one thing I want to talk about is data connections. Okay, so the application is intended to be self-contained within inside of SharePoint, right? Purchase request through purchase order, through the purchase order process like we're tracking now, right? Another option here, or not an option, but I guess more of a possibility, right? It's not required, is connecting our application to other third-party systems. So maybe you have something in a QuickBooks, an ERP system, where you're tracking your purchase catalogs, right? You have a purchase catalog in your ERP system, or your set of approvers is defined somewhere, right? Whatever it may be. But the idea being you want to push and pull information from these other third-party tools, right? Sending a PO and having it generate somewhere. I digress. Absolutely possible, right? So I just marked all these line items off here. But if you want to call out to a SQL database. You can leverage external data columns inside of SharePoint to connect to SQL. Inside of our Nitro toolset, in our workflow tool, you have the ability to run get, post, connect to APIs, other third-party tools to be able to push and pull that information. The nice thing about this, Nitro specifically with these applications, is that it is included in the cost of the tool. Now, we offer Nitro as a standalone, as a DIY. You can build it, create your own business applications if you want to have that option as a separate pricing model. But Nitro is included in the site, the purchase order site. It does come with the tool, and if you do want to build connections, or if you want to contract with my team to build connections to other applications, you absolutely can. So in this instance, I'm talking about the out-of-the-box process a lot, self-contained inside of SharePoint, but if we do want to connect to other third-party tools, we absolutely can. It's possible. You don't have to pay for a per-user basis like you would in Power Automate, right? You don't have to pay for those premium connectors for those familiar with the 365 space. Okay. So you can see we marked all of our statuses as received. The status on the PO has changed itself. It's been fulfilled, right? Now, again, leveraging custom actions on the parent form, getting away from the items form and looking at the purchase itself, we can also use the actions to update the status of the form. So this has been fulfilled. If we want to reconcile it, we can. That'll be the next step. So I'm going to just mark this as reconciled so we can move this through here. Wait for this to update. And we'll talk about some of the details here because we want to create an actual purchase order from this piece here. So I'm going to come into the edit form. So most of the time we've been working out of the new and the display form using those custom actions, but the edit form is possible, right? And the reason I bring that up is because in the edit form, we actually have the ability to capture a digital signature on any of our Crow Canyon forms as well. It's kind of a sign with your finger, which I'm doing now. So you can capture a signature if you'd like on the purchased order. You could have a link back to the original purchase request. Again, check number, invoice number, date paid, date received. This is typically where we see some information passed back and forth between third-party tools, invoice check number. And the last one here I want to touch on is the ship to information. Is my information saved in here? Look at that, I do. Okay. The reason I'm doing this, Systems, Inc. Yep. It's because I want to show you what a PO looks like. Okay. Hit save. Okay, so now when we go through, and as you can see, my item shifted. So these are our different views here at the bottom, right, on the purchase order. So again, going back to the architecture, I know broken record, I'm sorry, but the list. It's a SharePoint list. We have different views on the SharePoint list that we can create. Anyone working with SharePoint should be familiar with SharePoint views. Hands down, my favorite web part in Nitro Studio is this Listview Web part, because you have the ability to tab through views on a SharePoint list. You know, those familiar, you have to select the view from a drop down, it reloads the page. Super cool, this tabbed web part. I know I sound kind of nerdy, but I really like it. It makes my day-to-day easier being able to tab through these. We definitely use what we sell internally, right? We are fully point-based company. We use everything, and that's one of my favorite pieces. Now, a part of Nitro is a print manager tool. Very important in the purchase request application because you can create your own purchase orders directly from a SharePoint list item. In this case, a purchase order. Anyone who tried to print off SharePoint out of the box is a pain, right? It's a nightmare, right? It looks something like this, but less clean, right? Way less clean. What we do is we give you the ability to create your own rich text print template, right? So you can see here we put in a header with our information, right? And then on the bottom here, we've mapped over particular information from the purchase order into the physical copy of it, right? My ship to information, the purchase items associated with it, the total amount, my signature here in the bottom, although it's supposed to be fob on, but we'll gloss over that. And then the date and time at which I signed it. So for those who need to generate a purchase order from the application, you absolutely can. Hit the print button on an individual item. You can email it, you can PDF it, or you can print it. I'm going to PDF it in this instance. So now you have come on, load for me. Open up. well, it doesn't want to open. There we go. After the 5th click. Now we have a purchase order that we can send to our vendors if need be, right? That's something to be tracked. And again, this is just rich text. So if you want to come in here and create your own using that Nitro Studio Print Manager, you absolutely can. And just one last thing here that I want to touch on is kind of our vendors list. We'll touch a little bit on this contract piece here as well, but I am just over the 11:30 mark, so I do want to get to contracts. But you can also store information associated with your vendors, right? Microsoft, Dell, Best Buy, obviously some information associated with that vendor. Come on, load for me. Some information associated with the vendor here as well. We'll have this a little bit more fledged out in contracts, but that is kind of the one last list here. So this was a quick and dirty rundown of our purchase request application. There is a lot that goes into this. Kind of my spiel on this is that when you look at some of our tools, some of them fall into that application category, right? An IT help desk, let's say. An IT help desk is kind of defined. I want to submit and track tickets, right? I think, in my humble opinion, purchase requests and even onboarding is a little bit more of a solution, right? Because no two companies are alike. So if we have sparked some interest, if we've ramped up a little ether internally there, reach out, let's talk about a time to walk through this individually, talk about some things that make sense for you, and we'll do a more thorough demo of purchase requests just for your organization. Okay. Well, I'm going to switch now to contract management. If you do have any questions about purchase requests, shoot them in the questions box, and Scott will answer them as I go, as I shift. But we're going to talk about purchase or contract management now. It should be a little quicker too. We're gonna blaze through this, and we're going to leave some time for some questions at the end as well. Okay, contracts. So you can see the look and feel is the same as purchase requests, but the idea is consistent. The look and feel is intended to be consistent from a branding perspective. We have our Tiles web part at the top. We have our reports built into our dashboards, right? If we go back to purchase requests, same idea. Tiles at the top, requests across the middle. Because the idea here is that you are leveraging SharePoint, right? Well, you came today looking at SharePoint tools. You guys have SharePoint internally. It gives you some options to build on what you're using internally, whether it be 365 or SharePoint on-premise. The idea being leveraging the platform that you're already paying for, that you're already using. So from our perspective, it makes sense to keep the branding consistent, because if you have purchase requests related to contracts, if you want to automatically create, assets from purchase requests, hardware, software assets from purchase requests, you can. And the idea is that you want to seamlessly transfer from application to application, from list to list, and have it all look the same, have it all feel the same, so it keeps it consistent for your technicians, for your end users, gives you the ability to keep everything consistent internally, cut down on I don't know, headaches is the right word, but cuts down on the ability, or cuts down on the multiple data connections to multiple applications, multiple passwords, more to keep track of, right? So the idea, again, for us is to keep it consistent here. That way you can keep it consistent within your organization. Yeah, that's just my spiel, my shameless spiel for Office 365. Again, I get excited by it, so I try to convey that as well. Let's talk a little bit about contract management. Okay. So when creating a contract, let's fire up a new one. Okay. So again, our forms are configurable, right? If you something that you don't see on our form that you would like to have, you know what? I'll try to get through this pretty quickly so I can show you the forms tool a little bit to get you excited about that here at the end. But do know that this is configurable. So right, when we come in here and we create a new contract, let's say for Nitro Studio, column drop downs, right? So you can specify your different types of contracts. This will be what am I doing here? Other department, let's say IT, right? We have our departments. Expiration date, we'll put it out for a year from now. The vendor associated with it, Crow Canyon, came prepared. The start date, we'll say today. And renewal is for next year, yep, and we'll do it as a 1-year contract. Okay, so I just want to fill out some information here because I want to talk about some of these. And responsible entity will say me. So renewal options, expiration dates, responsible entities associated with the contract. Who are we going to notify when the contract's coming due? When are we going to notify them based on the date here? How often are we going to notify them, right? So in this case, if I'm the owner of this Nitro Studio contract and the expiration is set from a year out from now, do we want to notify me 90 days in advance, 60 days in advance, 30 days in advance, the day before, the day of, right? It gives us the ability to run those automated workflows, those set and forget workflows, have them be assigned to a person on a date and time, or on a date field. So you can set up some automated reminders to remind me to come in and check on this particular contract with some milestones, which we'll get into in a minute here. Now, another cool thing here is that using our forms tool, you do have the ability to create master contracts and relate them to subcontracts. So if you want to relate this to master contract 0001, I know, exciting name, but we guys get the idea, right? So if this contract is linked to a master contract, you absolutely can. So it creates a hierarchy between contracts, right? So contract master, and then it has 4, 5, 6 subcontracts associated with it, right? Finance information, let's say the value of the contract. This is going to come into play here for the approval piece as well. So just like in contracts, or just like in purchase orders, purchase requests, contracts, the approval process is very similar. We have that approval level list. You have the ability to define the approval level by the department, by the amount, by the person, maybe even by different levels. It gives you that ability, and we keep that consistent across all of our applications, just like I was talking about earlier, to make it easy to use, easy to configure, easy to implement inside of your environment, easy to grow, I should say. Contract documents and milestones. So this milestones list is another sub list. We talked about it a lot already, but a parent-child list is probably the best way to define it. Creating a milestone is like creating a task, creating a ticket associated with the contract renewal or a contract itself. What do I have to do for this contract, and how can I track it efficiently and easily? So let's just say task tracking to make a point here, okay? We'll say it's a deliverable. So 90 days before contract due, reach out to vendor. I'll clean up some spelling here as I talk about this. But the idea being, okay, so instead of doing all of this via email, well, a lot of the people I talk to in the contract space when I do demos, most contracts are being managed through an Excel spreadsheet or through email, right? Typically one of the two or a combination of both, right? So I pin an email, I look at my spreadsheet, I see this contract's coming due, I send an email out to Ryan to say, hey, Ryan, make sure that 90 days we contract a vendor to get an invoice to renew this contract, right? Simple but effective, right? But from a working perspective, you have to keep the Excel spreadsheet up to date, make sure multiple people have eyes on it. If a new contract needs to be created, maybe it's a paper form, right? Again, I digress, but the idea being all of this is now trackable from one form, one common interface, especially those tasks, right? So now I've created a task. I can assign it to myself in this case, or I can assign it to anyone in the organization associated with the contract. Again, it comes back to role-based permissions. So now that they know that they've been assigned a task, they'll get an email notification saying, hey, Ryan, you have a deliverable due for this Nitro Studio contract. You need to go out and check in with the vendor. So now instead of just tracking it via email, where are we, where does it stand, has Ryan done what he's intended to do? Now I can come in here and I can complete the task and say, yes, we've been contacted. Here's the invoice. I can include it as an attachment. I can update it. As soon as that is completed, we can notify, maybe the next person in line that, this has been done. Again, I'm saying a lot of ifs, ands, coulds, but it does give you that ability, like I said, to have everything in one centralized location and to be tracked, everything, the contract's life with the company and everything associated with it to be tracked in this application. I'm going to save that guy and I'm going to load it. There we go. And let's take a look at one of these guys after it's been completed here. It's going to make this a little bigger. Yeah, this is the one I want to talk about. So this is our master contract. So when I drop this guy down, I can see all of our subcontracts related to this master contract. okay? So we just created that Nitro Studio one. It has a maintenance support agreement also associated with it, but it does give you the ability, like I said, to create and track multiple contracts associated with the master. Now, I guess this is gonna look pretty familiar, just like we did in the purchase request application. I talked a little bit about that renewal options, renewal process. It's very similar from a design perspective. And again, just like in the purchase request tool, we're gonna have that approval task list here at the bottom. So the approvers can either come in and view their approval tasks within the contract application, or they can get these via email and they can update an approval via email, right? Same idea, I'm not gonna go into it again, but they do have both options here. They can either come in and complete the task, or they can do that via email. I'll just show the task here, right? Approve, deny, reassign. Okay, one other thing here that I think is pretty cool is this email history. So we have the send email feature here at the top. And this is another piece of the Nitro Studio platform. It's called Email Manager. And what it does is it gives you the ability to link an email to a particular SharePoint list item. So all I'm doing is I'm sending an email, right? It's coming, in this case, from my inbox. We can set this to come in from a shared inbox, a no reply, kind of however you want to send these, but you can define the to email as the responsible person maybe for this contract. You can also come in here and you can add in any users and groups. Again, Active Directory, link SharePoint user profile. So it could be a person, it could be a user in a column, or it could be an outside email address as well, right? So it doesn't have to be specific to your Outlook account. And then you can come in and basically, I kind of equate this to like signatures in Outlook on client, right? Remember, we always used to have like 5 to 10 signatures, that the 10 emails we would write every day, and instead of retyping it out or copy and paste it, we would just hit the signature and it would send that email template for us. Same idea, right? So we have a default template set up in here, maybe for, you know, the deliverable for the support contract, right? You can also type your own email, right? So if you have kind of default templates that you want to send out when a contract is coming due, you absolutely can, and you can create as many templates as you like. You can include attachments here as well. But again, all I'm doing is sending an email, right? Super simple. But the cool thing here now is that it's going to track all of our email history related to this particular contract. So if someone responds to that email, right? If I write back that response, it keeps a running thread of all the emails related to a contract, again, with its life with the company. So instead of having, if someone leaves the organization, someone's away and you have to dig through a bunch of old emails to find information related to a contract, gone are the days of copy and pasting. It's writing it directly into this particular line item. Super cool, super useful, really easy to set up and configure. A really nice piece of Nitro Studio, in my opinion. So while I'm here, I do want to take you to the back end. Go to the App Admin Center. Again, this is role-based permissions. So as long as we have the appropriate approval process, or appropriate access, not approval process, got approvals on the brain, we can come in here and we can access the Nitro Studio. So now as this is loading, I want to talk about one thing. Just came up on a call recently with a colleague of mine, with one of our existing customers. The question is, hey Ryan, let's say in this instance, I'm a purchase request approver, and I'm a contract management approver, right? In my case, I see approval tasks in the contract management list, and I see approval tasks in the purchase order list, purchase request list. I don't want to have to go to both applications to configure that, right? Really valid point, really cool idea. So in a lot of our applications, I want to pull, one of these guys up. Let's say IT. A lot of our applications come with something that we call a portal, Nitro portal, right? Employee portal, kind of whatever you want to call it. Let's call it a Nitro portal because that's what it says in the Nitro Studio area. So when we talk about these portals, oh, looks like it froze on me. Give me one sec, guys, sorry. Reopen it here. I'll talk about it as it's loading. But the portals are intended to be to make it easy for maybe our end users to submit requests through, right? Or maybe our departmental staff to manage and view requests through. So in this case, when you look at the portal, this is intended to be IT, right? They can submit a ticket, right? They can view their tickets, they can view KB articles. But essentially what we're doing is we're giving a landing page for people to come in here and either submit information to backend departments, right? Through submitting a request, submitting a form, and having it right into that backend SharePoint list without giving them access to the backend environment, right? Keeps permissions clean, keeps permissions easy. So we know end users hit the portal, we know technicians work out of the departmental level, right? But you can also view requests here, right? So in this case, I'm viewing my tickets as an end user. I can come in here, I can see tickets associated to me. But this could be easily repurposed to have all the approval tasks roll up into one dashboard as well. So they can tab through, they could see, in this case, it could be purchase request approval tasks, contract request approval tasks, right? IT approval tasks, whatever it may be. But it does give you the ability to have roll-up dashboards. Nitro Studio, I should say, gives you the ability to have roll-up dashboards, end user portals, basically this full comprehensive structure of business processes inside of your SharePoint environment, right? Leveraging Nitro Studio with these applications. So not to go too far into the spiel because I do want to touch on this a little bit, but Nitro is intended to be an info path replacement. So for those, side note, for those looking at maybe info path replacement now that it's being deprecated, Nitro is absolutely an option. We have a bunch of content on the website for it as an info path tool, replacement tool. But what's super cool is that you get an info path replacement inside of a pre-built application. So portals, dashboards, reports that need to be created, configured to make it easy for your management team, your end users, your business team, right? You have absolutely the power to do so. So in my opinion, we really over deliver for our price point because this Nitro tool set is very powerful. I know it's a plug, but if I didn't believe it, I wouldn't say it. Now let's talk a little bit about forms. Okay, while I'm here, this is the Nitro interface for this particular contract management site. So we got there through the application admin center in the back end, right? Navigate to the app admin, we opened up our Nitro Studio toolset. Okay, everything I was talking about today is here in the back end. So forms, workflows, custom actions, portals, that email manager piece, sending and linking emails to a list item, the tabbed Listview Web part, my favorite, the print manager for the POs, all lives in Nitro. So this is where we do the configurations for it. The forms tool obviously gets the bulk of the love because the forms tool is, whenever we open a list, we look at a form, right? Whenever we open a new item, we're looking at a form. I could spend 4 hours on the forms tool probably alone. I'm going to try to do it in a few minutes. But I want to give you guys the idea of how easy it is to configure this tool set. Super powerful. We're looking at the back end now, right? If we remember this from the contract creation. So we have the ability to come in, really, in my opinion, it breaks down into 3 different levels for the forms tool. It could be look and feel, right? How a form is displayed, right? So you want to change the look and feel of a form, you absolutely can. If you want to create your own form theme to have this be applied across your entire form or tenancy, from font color to font family, to cell color, cell padding, tabs and section colors, you absolutely can. You can have complete control over how all of your forms look either inside of the application, or if you go down the DIY or Nitro as a standalone across your entire farm or tenancy, right? You can also inject your own CSS here as well. Now you can add tabs, you can add sections, right? You can drag and drop tabs, you can drag and drop sections inside of a form. You can create as many as you like, there's no limitation there. Under form controls, all of our columns in the SharePoint list are available here on the right, or on the left, I should say. They can either be searched, let's say date columns on this particular contract list, or we can just drop them in here, right? Responsible entity we looked at, master contract we looked at. These are just the SharePoint columns in that list. Now from the SharePoint specific perspective, the second level of the form design tool, you can do things like override display names, so you can have the form say a certain thing that differs from the column itself. You can require that certain columns, have information associated with them, right? Or that they're required, right? That's what I'm trying to say. Certain columns are required. You can also convert column types to lookups, to signature columns like I've showed you. You can also configure unique permissions on columns as well. Hey, if column A equals this, show column B and C. If column A equals this, show column D and E, right? So you have some flexibility there as well. And then the third tier is kind of the more developer-centric. Script actions, running script, running workflow actions based on form load or column changes, calling out to those external data columns like I touched on. Again, things that will take time and effort to go into depth to really describe the full power of the tool. The idea being you have this full comprehensive form design tool also included in these applications. So I made the point earlier on in the continue with that apply. So I made the point early on in the webinar about how configurable the tool can be, and this is just kind of highlighting that, right? I just wanted to touch on what we can do from a form design perspective, right? So I know we're coming up just at the top of the hour. We're just about finished up here, so I do want to open some things up for questions in the last 5 minutes or so. So Scott, I know you've been hammering away at the questions here internally. Anything that I should cover that you can think of while we're still here?
Let's see. Yeah, there have been a few questions about the purchase order system. And well, most of them are about, is their recording going to be available? And that's yes. We'll send out a recording. And other one was about how to contact us. So maybe you can show our website and contact information there. That's another. They aren't related directly to the applications, but it was about keep it in touch and making connection with us. Of course, there's always sales@crowcanyon.com. Sales@crowcanyon.com is easy to remember and send to. And there's our website, which Ryan is on right now. It has a request a demo or contact us information. Also, a phone number in the upper right there. In the black line, you can see the right above contact us yeah, there's that and the phone number. So we're here, we're available. We have offices in California and also Rhode Island. So we're here, we're covering the United States, we sell worldwide. Now, as far as the specific app, here's a couple of questions. Let's see. Let me read here. Can you store a scanned copy? Yes, document libraries, right? We're talking about document libraries here.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a good point. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm going to open this up here as well.
Yeah, you can scan a copy and then upload it to a SharePoint document library or attach it to the contract management so that you have some information about it available there. Yeah, that's very possible. Parameters. See, the thing is, that's the whole thing about parameters. Each document has metadata on it, and that metadata is what is used to help manage the contract renewal process, because that way we know who the responsible person is for the contract, when its expiration date is. We don't read the contract directly from the system. It's all recorded in the wrapper, you could call it, around the contract, or there could even be multiple contracts. There could be one wrapper, which is the tool we use to manage the contract. And Ryan was showing that incorporates all the metadata about the contract or contracts. There may be multiple contracts that are associated with one, multiple documents associated with one contract, you could say, in a way. So let's see. So does it allow for financial tracking and reporting, contract spend versus contract budget, financial state of the contracts? That can be added on. That can be added on, because a meta tag would be something about, we have, what is the cost associated with each contract? And then that could be accumulated, aggregated together. It could be summed up and then compared to some other list, which is the spend. The budget and the spend can be compared to each other. That's very easy to do. It would be a little extension of the contract management program by adding another SharePoint list and another one or two meta tags on the contracts themselves. So I can very easily see doing that. See, that's what our applications are. We are able to extend them, make them more than what they are out of the box, because to meet everybody's particular situation, right, Ryan? That seems to happen a lot.
Yeah, that's Very common, right? Very common we see. Most people start with the base tool, and then as they grow with the company, growth Crow Canyon, the tool grows with them as well. Make changes, configurations, absolutely.
Right, right. Because it's hard to come up with one size fits all, but the Nitro Studio underlying our applications, it makes it very flexible to and quite easy to add on other components. So for that situation, I could see easily adding another list that says the contract budget and projected spend, and then another thing that has the meta tags on each contract for that type of contract. Might be different types of contracts. How much is spent, and then just do a comparison and put it out in a report. It seems like pretty straightforward thing to do once we understand the requirements a little more, and just a little addition to the program. Another question that came in earlier was about a blanket PO. A blanket PO is obviously about the purchasing system. So you have a purchase request for a PO that says over the next 3 years we're going to buy this stuff from this vendor for this price, whatever. Or we're going to pay for it every year for the next 3 years. Like say some of our customers do that. They do a 3-year PO and they pay for it year 1 initially, then year 2, then year 3. So that kind of thing, Ryan. Do you think that seems like pretty easy to put into our our purchase program would do already, I would say.
Yeah, I think in that regard, it could be easily set up with the like auto renewals features that we have, right? I think that's easy. Another option is like defining a budget for a specific purchase order or contract, and then anytime something is added to that kind of master contract, then it's subtracted from the budget. But a lot of possibilities. Again, it just kind of is defined on that individual person's requirements, right?
Right. That's it. That's why we say the next thing is, let's get in touch and talk and do it like a one-on-one demo. A person asking about the pricing structure, a la carte or complete systems and packages. I'm saying we sell the applications on their own, but they can also be combined into bundles.
That's correct.
That's right. So I'll put that down there. So that's it. I mean, I think the thing is to get in touch with Ryan or me, and we'll talk about what specifically we can do. A lot of interest in purchasing, don't you think, Ryan? A lot of people are.
Yeah,
it's been a lot of inquiries about that.
Yeah, it's been a hot topic of recent. It's one of our most requested, most used applications, and it just it's one of those things I love to chat about. Obviously, right? I just talked about it nonstop for an hour. Happy to do it again. So yeah, if you have any questions, do reach out to me. And I do want to plug one more thing coming up here. I talked a little bit about InfoPath, but we do have some webinars coming up for InfoPath replacement, right, Scott?
Yeah, next week. I've been doing them all along for several years, and now there's a lot of interest with 2021 coming on of replacing the InfoPath forms with whether it's our Nitro Studio or another solution, but preferably our Nitro Studio. And we just have gained a lot of expertise and experience over it over the past 2 or 3 years that we've been doing them. But now we're seeing a real acceleration of interest because people are realizing that mainstream support for InfoPath forms ends in 2021. And it takes time to get off them. So these are projects you want to initiate early in the year to be ready to make the move and users adopt it. Nitro Studio forms or workflows by the time the mainstream support ends. Also, we've been incorporating bots now more, these chat bots, which will more or less sometimes they'll supersede the need for a form. A person just chats with the bot, and if they can't get their answer, then it goes into a form. But preempting the initial request, being able to answer it with a chatbot in Teams is something that is we have these bots available using AI and natural language processing and all the other cool features, and making Teams a really, really useful tool for managing user requests, such that InfoPath forms really look outdated at this point. They're just not. I mean, we got to move off them. So I'll talk about that next week. And we have a project manager tool. We have scripts that can help you. We have our Nitro Studio. I mean, we have a guide too. The ebook. Are you still showing your screen? You might show them the InfoPath replacement ebook if they're interested. We're jumping topics here a little to InfoPath replacement. I realize. Okay. But that's next week, and I'm kind of excited about giving that put on that presentation. See, there's it's under There it is, yeah, ebook. So if they wanted this guide, just download this guide under Nitro Studio InfoPath Replacement ebook. The guide, so see, we wrote this guide, we got all kinds of information, and I'll be making a presentation next Thursday on that.
Really exciting move forward in the 365 space, specifically around these bots and these AI services. Again, if Scott's heard me say this in the past, you know, if you would have told me, you know, even a year ago that we would have AI services bots inside of SharePoint, I probably would have laughed at you. But with the increase in, you know, TLC and Teams and a really good push from our team internally, they are pretty cool. So if you do guys have an hour, if you do have an hour next week, I'd highly suggest attending that webinar. Scott does a good job. It should be pretty informative and pretty cool too.
That's great. All right, Ryan, that's good. Thanks for that presentation.
Yeah, thanks everyone for attending. Scott, thanks for answering questions. And like we said, guys, if you have anything, if you want to reach out, you want to do a private demo, just let us know and we'll get that set up. Everyone, you guys have a nice day.